My mother's voice carried over the folding tables before I even reached the main group. Ava's business has been a drain on this family for too long. I've been the one fielding all the questions about why her orders keep getting delayed or cancelled. If she can't run it properly, then we shouldn't be sending more people her way just because she's family. The group chat made it clear that some of you were still planning to use her for the reunion events, but I had to step in and tell the truth. We all love her, but love doesn't mean supporting something that's clearly not working out for anyone. It's time we all got on the same page about this. Hi, my name is Ava Morgan, I am 30 years old. I had walked into the community pavilion in our growing Charlotte neighborhood carrying a tray of the custom centerpieces I'd made for the Memorial Day tables. 2 days earlier a notification had lit up my phone from the family group chat. I had glanced at the preview, seen my mother's name, and told myself I would read it after I finished prepping for the reunion. I never got the chance. Now her words were out in the open, spoken to my older sister Jenna, to Diane Harper who had been my mother's closest friend for 20 years, and to 2 of my cousins who were already nodding. I set the tray down on the nearest table. My hand stayed steady even though my chest felt tight. What exactly did the group chat say, Mom? My mother turned. She didn't look surprised to see me. She looked ready. It said what needed to be said. People were about to place orders they couldn't afford to lose if your business keeps having problems. I saved them the trouble. Jenna shifted beside her. Ava, she's just trying to keep everyone from getting hurt. You've been quiet about how bad things really are. I looked at my sister. We had shared a room until I was 12. Now she was repeating my mother's lines like she had written them herself. You could have asked me directly instead of letting Mom post in the chat for everyone to see. Diane Harper gave a small, sympathetic smile that didn't reach her eyes. Your mother has been worried about you for months, Ava. She's the one who's been holding this family together while you've been focused on your little projects. The word little landed exactly where she meant it to. I felt the first sharp sting behind my ribs, but I kept my voice even. Those little projects paid for the deposits on this pavilion and bought the food we're all eating today. Or did that part get left out of the group chat? My mother's mouth tightened. She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only the 4 of us could hear. You always make it about money when it's really about you refusing to listen. I told you 6 months ago to slow down, to take fewer orders until you could handle them. You ignored me. Now the family is paying the price in embarrassment. I felt the old pattern trying to pull me under. The one where I explained, defended, and eventually gave in so the gathering could stay peaceful. Not this time. You didn't tell me to slow down, Mom. You told people behind my back that my business was failing and that they shouldn't hire me. That's not worry. That's sabotage. Jenna flinched. Diane's smile disappeared. My mother's face went still in the way it always did right before she decided someone else was the problem. She spoke again, softer now but no less sharp. I think we should finish this conversation somewhere quieter. The porch around the side of the building is empty. I followed her because I wanted answers, not because I was giving in. The short walk gave me 30 seconds to breathe. When we reached the shaded porch area, my mother turned to face me. Jenna stayed a few steps back, arms crossed. My mother didn't waste time. You've been removing yourself from this family one decision at a time, Ava. The business was the last straw. I had to make sure the rest of us weren't dragged down with you. The words hit harder than I expected. You went into the group chat and told everyone not to support me. You coordinated it so that 3 different relatives canceled orders this week. That wasn't protection. That was you turning them against me one by one. She didn't deny it. She just looked at me like I was the one who had broken something. Someone had to be the adult. You've always been too stubborn to see when you're in over your head. I felt the second mini cliffhanger land in my chest before she even finished the sentence. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Another group chat notification. I didn't open it yet. I kept my eyes on my mother. If you really believed I was failing, I said, why not say it to my face at the beginning instead of waiting until the reunion when everyone is here to watch? My mother's answer came without hesitation. Because I knew you wouldn't listen unless the whole family was watching. Sometimes that's what it takes. Jenna spoke from behind her, voice smaller than before. Ava, just maybe take a step back for a while. Mom's not wrong about the stress it's putting on everyone. I looked at my sister, then back at my mother. The quiet porch suddenly felt louder than the pavilion had. My mother had just admitted, in her own careful way, that she had used the group chat to isolate me from the family's support. And she wasn't finished. My phone buzzed again. This time I glanced at the screen. The newest message was from my cousin Brandon Ellis, the one who usually stayed out of family drama. It was only 2 words, but they made the ground tilt. Check the photo. I didn't know what photo he meant. I didn't know why he had sent it to me instead of the group. I only knew that my mother's expression changed the second she saw me look at my phone. For the first time since I arrived, she looked uncertain. She took 1 step closer. Whatever that is, it doesn't change what we've already decided as a family. I slipped the phone back into my pocket without answering. The reunion was still happening 30 feet away. Laughter and the smell of grilled food drifted around the corner of the building. But on this porch the air had gone thin. My mother waited for me to speak. I didn't. I just looked at her, really looked, and let the silence stretch until she had to be the one to break it. She did. And what she said next made the second cliffhanger hit harder than the first. Ava, if you walk back in there and make a scene, you're only proving to everyone that I was right to step in. I felt the choice land in front of me like a line drawn in the concrete. Go back inside and keep the peace the way I always had, or say the thing that would make the rest of this reunion impossible to ignore. I opened my mouth. If you've ever stood in front of the people who raised you and realized they were the ones quietly dismantling the life you built, drop peace in the comments if you chose yourself anyway. I'm still learning how. I closed my mouth on the porch and looked at my mother for 1 long second. The choice she had laid out sat between us like a test I had already failed by staying quiet for years. I turned without answering and walked back toward the pavilion, but I stopped just inside the shade of the building and pulled out my phone. The message from my cousin Brandon Ellis was still on the screen. 2 words and a screenshot. I opened it. The image was a private message chain my mother had sent 2 weeks earlier to Brandon, to my aunt on my father's side, and to 3 other relatives. It wasn't in the main group chat. It was separate. The text read, Ava's orders are running late again. I don't want anyone else getting caught in the middle if things keep slipping. If she asks about the reunion setup, just say the pavilion already has everything handled. She doesn't need to know we changed the plan. Below it was a second message from my mother, she'll only make it harder on herself if she thinks she's still in charge of family things. I read it twice. My hands stayed steady, but the air felt thinner. This was how she had done it. Not one big announcement. Private messages, one relative at a time, removing my voice from decisions before I even knew the decisions were being made. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and stepped into the pavilion. The smell of barbecue and the sound of people laughing hit me at once, but none of it reached me. My older sister Jenna was standing near the drink table with Diane Harper. When Jenna saw me, she looked away fast, the way people do when they have already chosen a side. I walked straight to them anyway. Jenna, did Mom send you the same messages she sent Brandon? Jenna's shoulders tightened. She kept her eyes on the cups she was stacking. She was trying to protect you. You've been overwhelmed. Everyone could see it. Diane Harper spoke before I could answer. Your mother has always been the one who keeps this family from falling apart, Ava. Sometimes that means making hard calls the rest of us don't want to make. I felt the old urge to explain myself rise, and I pushed it back down. Hard calls usually involve talking to the person first. Not texting everyone else behind their back so they stop hiring me or including me in plans. My sister finally looked at me. Her voice was quiet but firm. You didn't answer the group chat for 3 days after Mom posted about slowing down. What were we supposed to think? That I was working, I said. Not that I was being removed from every family decision without anyone asking me. The words landed. Jenna's face changed for a second, like she hadn't thought of it that way. Then my mother appeared at her shoulder again, as if she had been waiting for the exact moment the conversation turned. She didn't raise her voice. She never did when she wanted to win. Ava, you're making this about you again. The reunion is supposed to be about all of us. If you can't set the business aside for one afternoon, maybe that's the real problem. I felt the second mini cliffhanger hit before she finished speaking. Because I realized she wasn't just talking about today. She was talking about every family event from now on. She had already decided I would be the one who had to step back. My father, Paul, walked over then with 2 plates of food. He looked between us, sensed the temperature, and tried to smooth it the way he always had. Everything all right over here? Food's getting cold. My mother answered before I could. Ava's just tired from work. She'll be fine once she has something to eat. I didn't argue. I took the plate my father offered and walked to an empty table near the edge of the pavilion. I sat with my back to most of the room so I wouldn't have to watch people avoid looking at me. The food tasted like nothing. Every few minutes my phone buzzed with another group chat. Notification, but I didn't open any of them. I already knew what they would say. After 20 minutes my mother came and sat across from me. She didn't bring a plate. She folded her hands on the table like we were about to have a business meeting. I need you to understand something, she said. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. That was how she delivered the worst parts. This family has always worked because someone was willing to make the difficult choices. Your father and I did that for years. Now it's my turn to make sure we don't lose what we built because one person refuses to see reality. I set my fork down. And reality is that my business is a problem everyone else has to manage for me? Reality is that you've been asking this family to carry you while you figure things out, she said. The group chat was my way of making sure no one else got pulled in deeper than they could afford. I removed your name from the planning thread for the July family trip because I knew you would try to turn it into another opportunity to sell your products. That wasn't fair to the rest of us. There it was. The deliberate removal of one voice. Not dramatic. Not announced. Just quietly taken out of the thread so my input no longer existed in the decisions that involved all of us. She had done it cleanly, the way she did everything. I felt the hurt rise and I let it sit there instead of pushing it down. You didn't ask me if I wanted to be removed. You decided for me. Because I knew what you would say, my mother answered. You would have fought to stay in. And then everyone would have felt obligated. I saved you from that. Jenna had followed her over and stood a few feet away, listening. She didn't defend me. She didn't defend my mother either. She just stood there, and that silence told me everything I needed to know about where she had landed. My phone buzzed again on the table between us. This time it was a text from Brandon Ellis, not the group chat. Great Aunt Evelyn just pulled up. She said she has something for you. Looks serious. I read it twice. My mother saw the name on the screen and her expression shifted for the first time all afternoon. Not anger. Something closer to calculation. She stood up. Whatever Evelyn thinks she needs to bring to a reunion, it can wait until after we've finished eating. Family comes first. I didn't stand. I stayed seated and looked up at her. You've been deciding what comes first for everyone without asking them. That stops today. My mother's mouth tightened into the line I had seen my whole life when someone pushed back. She leaned down slightly so only I could hear her clearly. If you make this into a scene in front of the whole family, Ava, you will regret it. Some things, once said out loud, can't be taken back. Think about whether you're ready for that. She straightened and walked away toward the main tables. Jenna hesitated for a second, then followed her without looking at me. I sat with the half-eaten plate and the new text glowing on my phone. Great-Aunt Evelyn Harper was not the kind of person who showed up to reunions unannounced. She lived 2 hours away and only came when something mattered. Brandon's message said she looked serious. I opened the group chat for the first time since arriving. The newest messages were short and careful. People asking if everything was okay. One from my cousin asking why the planning thread for the July trip had been archived without explanation. No one had tagged me. It was as if my name had already been removed from the conversation in more ways than one. My phone buzzed one more time. A single message from Great-Aunt Evelyn herself, sent directly to me. I'm here. We need to talk before your mother sees what I brought. I stood up. The pavilion felt smaller than it had an hour ago. Across the room my mother was laughing at something Diane Harper said, the sound light and easy, like nothing had happened on the porch. My older sister stood beside her, nodding along. I walked toward the entrance of the pavilion. The afternoon light outside was bright and ordinary. A car door closed in the parking area. I saw Great-Aunt Evelyn step out, carrying a small box the size of a shoebox. She moved slowly but with purpose, the way someone does when they have been carrying something heavy for a long time and are finally ready to set it down. She saw me and lifted the box slightly in greeting. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Whatever was inside that box had already changed the weight in the air between my mother and me. I just didn't know yet how much. I walked toward Great-Aunt Evelyn Harper as she crossed the parking area carrying the small box. My mother's words from the porch still sat in my chest, but I kept moving. Evelyn stopped a few feet from me and held the box out without ceremony. I drove here because your grandmother would have wanted you to have this before anyone else tried to rewrite what she actually said, she told me. Her voice was steady, the same calm tone she had used at every family funeral and every difficult holiday. Open it inside if you want privacy. Or open it where people can see. I'm past the age of caring which one you pick. I took the box. It was light, just cardboard and old tape. I carried it back into the pavilion and set it on the table where I had been sitting. A few relatives glanced over. My mother was still near the drink station with Diane Harper, but I saw her head turn when she noticed the box. I lifted the lid. Inside was a single old photograph in a plastic sleeve and a folded piece of paper. The photo showed me at maybe 10 years old, sitting at my grandmother's kitchen table with glue and fabric scraps spread everywhere. My grandmother's arm was around my shoulders. We were both laughing. On the back, in her neat handwriting, were 3 sentences. Keep making things, Ava. The world needs more people who build instead of tear down. Don't let anyone convince you that wanting your own life is selfish. I read the note twice. Then I turned the photo over so the words faced up and left it on the table. I didn't call attention to it. I just let it sit there while I walked to the center of the pavilion where more people could see. My mother reached the table first. She looked at the photo, then at me. Evelyn has always been dramatic about old things. This doesn't change what's happening right now. It changes what you told everyone about why I shouldn't be included, I said. My voice stayed even, but it carried. Grandma wrote that when I was 10. She knew I wanted to make things for a living. She never once told me to shrink it so the family would be more comfortable. Jenna had followed my mother over. She stared at the note for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was smaller than it had been on the porch. Mom said Grandma never really understood how hard it would be for you. That she was just being nice. My mother shot Jenna a sharp look. That's not what I said. It's close enough, Jenna answered. She kept her eyes on the photo. You told me Ava was using the family as free marketing. You told Brandon the same thing. You told everyone the same thing in different words so no one would feel like they were choosing sides. The words landed in the middle of the pavilion. A few conversations nearby stopped. My father, Paul, set down the plate he was holding and came closer. He didn't speak, but he stood beside Jenna instead of beside my mother. That small shift felt louder than anything anyone had said yet. Great-Aunt Evelyn had followed me inside. She spoke from a few feet away, loud enough for the people nearest us to hear. Your mother has been managing the story about Ava for years. I stayed quiet because I thought it was just worry. Then I saw the messages she sent about keeping Ava out of the July trip planning. That wasn't worry. That was control dressed up as love. My mother's face flushed. She reached for the photo like she might take it. I stepped in front of the table. You don't get to decide what stays hidden anymore, I told her. You removed me from the planning thread. You sent private messages telling people my business was failing so they would stop hiring me. You stood on that porch and told me I would regret speaking up. I'm speaking up anyway. The pavilion had gone mostly quiet now. People were watching. Some looked uncomfortable. A couple of my cousins had their phones out, not recording, just holding them like they didn't know what else to do. Diane Harper had stepped back, creating distance between herself and my mother without saying a word. Jenna took a shaky breath. She called me the night before the reunion. She said if I didn't back her up today, Ava would keep pulling the family into her problems and none of us would ever have peace. I believed her. I'm sorry. The apology was quiet, but it was the first time anyone had said it out loud. My mother turned to her like she had been slapped. You don't know what you're saying. I do now, Jenna said. She looked at me instead of at our mother. I should have asked you myself. I didn't. That's on me. I felt something loosen in my chest even while everything else stayed tight. The loss was already happening. The version of our family where we all pretended everything was fine had cracked in front of everyone who mattered. There was no putting it back together exactly the way it had been. My mother tried one last time. If you do this here, in front of everyone, you're choosing to break this family apart. I'm choosing to stop letting you break me apart piece by piece, I answered. There's a difference. She didn't have a reply ready. For the first time in my life, my mother stood in front of me with nothing left to say that would make me smaller. She turned and walked toward the exit. Diane Harper followed her after a moment. A few other relatives drifted after them, the ones who had received the private messages and had already decided whose side they were on. The rest stayed. Over the next hour the reunion changed shape. People came up to me one by one or in small groups. Some apologized for believing what they had been told. Two of my cousins asked if I still had room to take orders for a family wedding in the fall. My father stayed near me without saying much, but he didn't leave either. Jenna sat at the table with the photo for a long time, reading the note over and over like she was memorizing it. I didn't stay until the end. When the sun started to drop and the food was mostly gone, I packed the photo and the note back into the box and carried it to my car. Great-Aunt Evelyn walked with me. She tried the same thing with your mother when your mother was younger, Evelyn said quietly. Your grandmother shut it down then too. Some patterns only break when someone finally refuses to keep them going. I nodded. I didn't have words yet for what I was feeling. It wasn't triumph. It was something quieter and heavier at the same time. I had spoken up. I had lost the easy version of family gatherings where everyone smiled and no one said the hard things. I had also stopped disappearing inside those smiles. In the weeks after the reunion, the shifts kept happening. 3 relatives who had cancelled orders reached out again and placed new ones, this time without going through my mother first. My business didn't explode overnight, but the steady work returned and then grew a little. I stopped checking the family group chat every morning. I left it muted. When my mother texted me directly 3 weeks later asking if I was still angry, I answered once. I'm not angry. I'm done being managed. If you can respect that I get to make my own choices about my work and my place in this family, we can talk. If not, I need space. She didn't reply for 2 days. When she did, it was short. I was trying to protect you. I didn't answer that one. Protection that requires removing someone's voice isn't protection. It's control, and I had finally stopped accepting it as love. Jenna and I started having coffee once a month, just the 2 of us. She was still figuring out where she stood with our mother. I didn't push her. I just showed up and let her see that I was still her sister even when I refused to play the old role. Some days the conversations were easy. Some days they weren't. That was honest in a way the old family peace had never been. My father called more often than he used to. He never talked about the reunion directly, but he asked about my work like he actually wanted to know the answer. I let him in a little at a time. Trust rebuilt slowly when it had been broken quietly for years. The biggest change wasn't in the business or even in the family dynamics, though both shifted permanently. The biggest change was inside me. I stopped measuring my worth by how much I was willing to give up to keep everyone comfortable. I stopped believing that being the one who stayed quiet made me a good daughter. I started believing that having my own life, my own work, and my own voice was allowed, even when it made other people unhappy. I still love my family. That never left. But I no longer hand them the power to decide how much of me is acceptable. That part one keep for myself now. If you've ever had to choose yourself even when it meant the picture everyone else wanted to keep got broken in the process, drop peace in the comments. I see you. I'm still here, and I'm okay. Thank you for listening to my story.